So this Toolbox project really had its genesis in students who said, we are working across these wide disciplinary divides, but we're encountering a lot of difficulties, and we think that they might be fairly fundamental difficulties. That is, we're using different, not only we're using different vernaculars, but we really have some different assumptions that we seem to be bringing to this way we do science, and it's causing us to stumble in years 2 and 3 of our project. So that was philosophical. I went up the hill to meet with Michael O'Rourke, who's professor of philosophy at the University of Idaho, and ask for some help and some thinking about this. So we organized a seminar. It was in 2005. I think it was the only philosophy/entomology offering that I'm aware of on our campus, so we're proud of that. And we invited people from all across the campus, the Eigert Project, and anyone else who's interested in thinking about the challenges of working in interdisciplinary divides that are rather wide, and what can we do to try to promote and improve that type of collaboration. We discovered, examining the literature, that of course it's quite easy to find the recommendation that you have to improve your levels of communication across the disciplines. That's a must. It's in the National Academy's study on interdisciplinarity, but there's really, the next page doesn't have anything on it about how you do that. And in fact, the literature's really pretty shallow. I was going to, somewhere between shallow and absent. So it was easy to discover within a couple of weeks that there was this gap, and then the rest of the seminar was all about, so what do we do about that gap? We concluded, based on our reading of the literature about the failures of interdisciplinary collaboration, that many of the challenges do concern communication that are philosophical. We could be biased because we were in the seminar room in the Department of Philosophy, but as we had this discussion, but I think it's legitimate that different vernaculars, which themselves are founded on concepts, difference in scale and scope of inference that the sciences can make, difference in different methods of drawing inferences, different views of the role of stakeholders in driving our science, different approaches to incorporating the value of researchers into the work, and reductionist and holistic approaches are examples of those, and all of those are philosophical, or they can be perceived as that. And our conclusion was, if teams that are wanting to communicate better were able to reveal the dimensions along which these divides occurred at this level, they would have a better, more productive, successful project ultimately in their integration. So we recommended, and those of you who've seen the 2007 paper, it's basically outlines what I just said, and then recommends that the way to do it is to have a structured dialogue with some prompts to make sure that the team really investigates broadly across the potential philosophically based divides that may occur. And that paper allowed us to get funding from the National Science Foundation to keep going, to develop workshops based on that recommendation. This is a little primer on it. I think this stuff is I've already gone over it, so I'll keep going. We use dialogue methods based on that, on a set of prompts. And we have two things we're doing. We have a table of prompts that is the basis of these workshops. And then the workshop itself is about a 2 to 3 hour session in which people are asked to think about all the prompts and discuss them. So there are 34 in the current STEM instrument. We have a couple of different instruments now. One is called the STEM instrument. And we divide this into modules, and each module has a core question that's philosophical and then a set of prompts that attempts to pull out some details. So here's an example of a module. It's called Motivation. Does the principal value of research stem from its applicability for solving problems, is the question. Why do we do science? And then we decided to, different from what you might have read in the bioscience paper, here we have Likert scales, so that we ask people to read these statements that parse out this core question and indicate their level of agreement. Principal value of research stems from the potential application of the knowledge gained. Disagree, agree, don't know. Give them an NA option. And we did this because for one reason was that we ran a number of these toolbox sessions without the Likert scale and just asked people to kind of think about it. But this helped force people to at least put themselves on a continuum that they could imagine, and then we could ask them to, if things just get a little bit stalled in the workshop, you can just ask people to reveal their numbers and then talk about why there might be discrepancies, which could be based on real differences in views or differences in interpretation of these prompts. Cross-disciplinary research is better suited to addressing applied questions than basic questions. That's another example of parsing this one out. The importance of our project stems from its application. Example prompts. Then another set here. Do values negatively influence scientific research? Incorporating one's personal perspective in framing a research question is never valid. Agree, disagree. We try to have those statements be fairly stark in there, so that in the framing, so people would be, so we would get a diversity of Likert responses. So that's what it looks like. What we do with it is allow a team, and the teams have ranged from 4 up to as many as 17 people, to go through the entire toolbox. It has all those modules, and then discuss at their own pace, not their own pace, I guess, because they have unlimited time, but following their own trajectory, going through the toolbox, the things that are most interesting from that for them. And a facilitator is always present, and that facilitator, though, has a very minor role, tries to say as little as possible and let the discussion go. Maybe once in a while saying, okay, I see a link between what you're saying in this module and this other module. Are there any views in this other module? And then kind of step back and hope that the team covers most of the modules during the session. And then we record that session, we generate a transcript, we collect all the Likert scores from everybody in the workshop. Then we also distribute the toolbox again at the end of the workshop, and we ask them to do it again. So we get a pre and post evidence of any shifts in those Likert scale scores as a result. We make that into a graphic so that we can visualize the team's distribution of scores on the different prompts and also how those might have shifted. We provide a full transcript of the session, and we provide a letter from the facilitator saying, here's what we saw. And then that's how the application that's how it's been applied so far. That's how we've been doing it. And it seems to work in the sense that surveys of workshop assessments of participants who we contacted and asked to respond to some of these questions about their participation. 84% say the workshop had a positive impact on awareness of the knowledge, opinions, or scientific approach of teammates. 82% had an overall positive impression of going through the workshop. Statements about impact on professional development were generally positive. 77% of the respondents were entirely positive about that, and so on. So there's generally a good response by users. They had a good experience with this. Evaluating it beyond that has been a challenge for us. We don't have control groups. We don't have measures of team output beyond the toolbox. Those are the kind of things that are probably indicated, but we haven't figured out how to do that yet. Thanks a lot, and ready for questions.
Okay.